Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
My pleasure to welcome in Nicki Jhabvala. Nicki, how are you? Hopefully still as well as you were this morning.
I am good. I thought you were going to source that or something. I was kind of hoping you would source it, that you stood next to me.
Sources say that she was at practice.
Sources
say
yeah.
I was also there. Sources say we were in the same general vicinity. No,
yes.
I like general on the record statements where they can apply with names attached. That's
I get that. Yeah.
It's the dream. We don't get to live that dream very often as reporters, but
right.
it's the dream. So when we were walking off the practice field, I kind of jokingly turned to you and was like, "Oh, there it goes, another day of practice in the books. That's fairly nondescript and in some ways that's good." And it's like, okay, cool, check the box. But we have had enough of these nondescript days that there's a week's worth of data to look at. So as you think of training camp so far, has anything emerged that you find particularly interesting through these 8 days?
I'd say the most interesting, and this is not just because I wrote about it for a story that may or may not go up on the Washington Post tomorrow morning, it's truly just the structure of practice. I remember in recent years, not to make, strong comparisons to the previous regime, but the practices were pretty dead. And granted, these are, there weren't a ton of fans at camp, but, there was more standing around. It wasn't as much movement. It wasn't as intense. This is totally different now. This is the Chiefs' practices. This is what we're watching. I mean, they use both fields. They're constantly moving. There's always a focus for the day, be it red zone, third down, goal line, whatever. They have a set number of, like they did before, they have a set number of periods and, they'll run through those. But this is a different level of intensity. I talked to Logan Thomas after, and you know how they have the tracking devices on their back, right? Where it tracks.
Just for the audience, real quick, Nicki, I'll interject just to explain for those that don't, because while I know it, they might not. So there's a GPS tracking device that they literally stick in the shoulder pads, and it tracks everything, not just like your GPS watch might when you go for a run that says like, oh, this guy ran X amount of miles today, but it also actually gives them based off of they can go back with like timestamps and be like, okay, based off our practice script, we were running this period at this time, and this guy reached X miles per hour and did this amount of high-speed running. So there's a tremendous amount of data that comes out of these chips.
Right. But on the most basic level, it shows, how much distance you traveled, how many steps you put in, basically.
Right.
Well, Logan said, typically last year and years past, you would put in around 4,500 yards. He wouldn't give me a specific number, but he just kind of laughed and was like, it's a little bit over that now. And it's, it doesn't take a scientist to figure out why. They're constantly moving. And then you throw in kind of the nuts and bolts of the offense with the pre-snap motion, the quick game. These guys are going to be in good shape for the start of the season, which is what you want, obviously, but it's especially what you want for later in the season. To go into this, to be fresh in the fourth quarters, to, you hope, be healthier throughout the season. To me, it's all positives going in.
100%. And it has been really fascinating to talk to guys about this and about the practice structure. And I think there's so many different parts of it. I don't know which parts you wrote about. Obviously, we'll find out when we read your story in the Washington Post.
You'll have to read it on the Washington Post, yeah.
WashingtonPost.com/sports for Nicki's work. But the other interesting thing on top of kind of the tempo is they're in these periods forever. I don't ever remember a training camp period with 20 minutes on the clock. I don't know if you talked to anybody about that or you just have your own thoughts.
That's part of it. How they're...
Yeah, what do you make and what did they make of these longer extended periods?
Yeah, and this is something that they wanted to do after last season, and it's, a focus of Bieniemy, but also Del Rio's. Is, they felt like they bounced too quickly from period to period, so now they focus longer on their action periods, and they have a narrow focus within those periods. So they'll do 9-on-7, but it'll be 9-on-7 with a focus on third down, and they'll go third and short, third and medium, third and long, and so on. So they have more time, so they can really dive into the details and really get extra reps doing that, which of course adds more to their plate physically and conditions them as part of this. But that's the thinking behind it, which is good. I mean, I think what was missing a lot in recent years was the basic teaching. There wasn't as much of a focus on the details of not just the system and the offense, but the small things of the game in general. And this new structure focuses more on that. And then you just kind of throw in EB's personality and you get a healthy dose of it all around.
Yeah, Nicki Jhabvala is with us from the Washington Post. You've had, obviously you've been here for a number of years now, but before that you covered the Broncos and you had some national gigs as well. Is this comparable to most other camps, to rarely, just the Chiefs? How many other camps that you've seen and been around look similar to what they are doing versus looking more similar to what they've done in the past?
I'd say there's variation across the board. This is very similar to a Kubiak style practice where you're just constantly moving. No second is wasted. Keep moving, keep working. Kubiak's first year, they won a Super Bowl, so I felt like he was probably doing something right, and Andy Reid's won a couple, so he's doing something right. I think past years, I remember my first year on the beat, John Fox was still the coach in Denver, and they were much less intense. And it was a big issue for Peyton. He did not like that, and he's very, as you might have seen, rather controlling, very A-type. He wanted a more intense practice, and then Kubiak came in, and he got it, and they won. So there you go.
There you go.
So there's variation.
Yeah, for sure. But the intensity and intentionality seem to be things that work. And no matter how many plays you run in a given practice. What have you made of Howell through a week?
Yeah, I think he's probably much in line with what you'd expect for somebody with his experience level. I think he's done a lot of really good things, a lot of impressive things. I think he's got a pretty good command. See what I did there?
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think he plays with confidence. He's got the mobility, obviously. It's hard to fully gauge what he is now because he's playing against a defense that pretty much kind of knows what they're going to do. So I'll be curious what he looks like, even going against the Ravens in those joint training camp practices and certainly even in preseason. But I think he showed a lot of good things. He showed a lot of the reasons why they want to really give him this chance this year. But he's also young, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes at any age, but especially when you haven't seen the volume of, opponents and tape that, many other quarterbacks have seen. So there have been times where it's been up and down, but I think on the whole, it's been pretty positive.
I agree, which is why I found it kind of interesting that Ron went out of his way to Keim's question this morning to be like, hey, don't forget about Jacoby Brissett. And it's like, yeah, we haven't forgot. He's just the backup, right? What did you make of Ron kind of interjecting Brissett into a Howell-adjacent question?
Oh, he always says that. He does it purposely for motivational purposes.
Do you think that works, though? Or is it just a silly thing coaches convince themselves that works?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think the players are hanging on every word of Ron's press conferences post-practice, but, yeah. But that's something he's done in the past.
No, he does. And I wonder, sometimes Ron can't help himself with honesty. Sometimes Ron can't help himself I don't know. If I spent time, I could say this in a nicer way, but I'm just going to say it the way that it's in my head. Sometimes Ron can't help himself but to be like a movie character high school football coach.
Yes,
and it's that is kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't think anybody's fooled by this, including Sam Howell, but sure, throw Jacoby in there.
But there are so many things within the NFL that are like that, right?
Yes, 100%.
Don't film anything in practice because, Bill Belichick might see what you're doing on special teams and beat you with it. Like, really? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
But there's so many things like that,
That would be, Anthony, put this in the rundown for like next July when we have time. Like, let's Nikki and I can spend an hour just totally bitching and moaning about all the silly things NFL people do.
Many silly things.
I think it'll be good for us to get it off of our chests. Nicki Jhabvala is with us from the Washington Post for a few more minutes here for Not My Beat on the Hoffman Show. I mean, defensively, Nicki, this unit has been as advertised, which is not exactly what's happened the past couple of camps. Are you confident that they can carry the continuity and the high-level play and everything that we've seen so far into the regular season?
I think they're built to, certainly. I think the one thing that really stands out, I mean, yes, you got the 4 first-round picks up front, and those guys are beasts. They're really freaking good and big. But I like the depth and the versatility of the secondary. They got guys that can move all around. It's not just, Cam Curl and one other veteran. They got young guys, and they got a foundation that can last for years. And they truly can move around because they do it every play. I mean, they're rotating constantly back there. And I just think, that can only help you. I mean, some of their weaknesses on defense have been, because of the back end, giving up the 40-yard plays or whatever. But when you got that stout pass rush and you can seal it on the back end, I mean, that's what every defense wants. And I think this defense, again, could be relied upon to, close out some games for them. So I think they're built well.
I will try to think of a fun question so we don't have to end on this note, but I do have to ask. How, I don't know if nervous is the right word. How concerned should we be about this court hearing for Jamin Davis tomorrow?
I think it's possible Thursday's court hearing is more of a status hearing to schedule something else in the future. It's possible they could pull together another plea agreement or they set a date for a trial. But I think at this point it seems pretty likely that he is going to have to serve some time in jail. The original sentence was 30 days, and he appealed that guilty conviction. He pled not guilty, but was convicted. He appealed that, reached a plea deal for a maximum of 8 days, and the judge rejected it, saying that's too light. So I think it's pretty likely that whether it's a plea deal or a trial, that he could be, it seems pretty likely he could be facing time.
And is that the kind of thing that do you think they'll get suspended till after the season? Like, what's the chances that he misses time this year because he is in jail for reckless driving?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I would imagine if this drags into the season and then the sentencing comes up in season, they would try to push it down the road. But you never know. I mean, it depends on, the terms that are agreed upon in the next plea agreement, if that's what they go for, or the sentencing that a jury comes up with. So I believe the original sentence, the 30-day one, it allowed him to defer to after the season, but he appealed that. So it's honestly no telling with what they agree upon next.
Nicki Jhabvala, Washington Post with us. All right, here's the best I can do for a silly, lighten the mood question on the way out. Level of 1 to 10, your panic on the fact that Tress Way dropped a field goal hold today. Has Tress lost his magic?
To be fair, it wasn't a great snap. But no, don't ever suggest that Tress lost his magic.
That's the correct answer.
That's like telling a kid that Santa Claus isn't real. You can't do that. No, that's ridiculous.
No, Tress is so magical.
No.
Cameron Cheeseman, how dare you have Tress Way look bad? I mean, what a sin that is.
I know. That is not Tress. Like, don't even put that. Don't even.
I apologize. You know what? That's on me. That's 100% on me.
Come on, Greg.
Sorry, Tress Way. Cameron Cheeseman, we need to have a discussion. All right, Nicki, great to hang out the last couple of days. I will see you next week. Continue to enjoy training camp. Another day where hopefully nothing major happens, because nothing good major happens this time of year.
Correct.
I'll talk to you. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. See ya.
That is Nicki Jhabvala, everybody. Washington Post. I'm very much looking forward to reading her reporting on the periodization of practice. That is very much up my alley in terms of like the sports sciencey part of this. It is something that I have been like kind of working on behind the scenes too to get more information. So Nicki, I guess, beat me to it, and she's going to write hers down. But I would, based off what I read from Nicki's story and things I'm able to piece together, and hopefully able to have some conversations over the next couple weeks and how this is all gone. It is something that I am mega paying attention to. Not just because I'm interested in it now, but I want to see how it pays off. Like if they look fresher and better than their opponents and sharper and all that stuff to start the year, like this is a data point that matters. Obviously it can't overcome lack of talent, lack of execution, but I think the point is like this stuff helps with execution. Because you're not tired if you're in shape. And when you're tired, you make mistakes. And that has been a problem, late game execution for them at times over the Rivera era. And they've also started slow. And there's just, it all plays together. So I am very excited to read Nicki's story in the morning on that. Thanks for watching this clip of our 2023 Washington Commanders training camp coverage. For more, check out the radio show live daily from 4 to 7 p.m. on the Team 980. We also stream live on the free Odyssey app, or you can watch the show here on YouTube at the Team 980. Subscribe right here for all our on-demand content. Click the button. Go now. Subscribe. And come on, while you're at it, let's be honest. If you made it this far, you probably liked what you saw. So go ahead and hit that like button too before another video starts. It's the polite thing to do.